All right, guys, today we're going to go ahead and rebuild the shocks on the XMAXX. I've got this marked right here, so this will be the shock that we're doing. And before we start, make sure you have your tools laid out. I have some 32.5 weight shock oil from Losi. Stock is 30 weight Traxxas shock oil. 32.5 provide a little bit better dampening, and it's also a little bit warmer where I live, so going up a little bit will help out. We have this little multi wrench here, and if you don't have one, that's fine, but we do need it to be a 7mm. Then we have the 2mm hex wrench, an adjustable wrench, and the shock rebuild kit, which we'll cover a little bit more in depth here in a minute. All right, so this is the shock we're working on, and if you've never taken these off, it is super easy. This is the rear shock, and so you can see it's got this screw right here that holds that hinge pin in. We're going to take this screw out. We'll use that same hex wrench, push it through here, and that'll just push the pin out. On the bottom, pretty much the exact same thing. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me see if I can get in a little bit better. So you have that screw holding that hinge pin in. We're going to remove that screw. Again, we'll take the wrench. We'll push it through right there. And of course, that'll push the hinge pin out. So let me set this up on the tripod and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so again, we're going to use the 2mm hex wrench. I'm just going to undo this screw right here. Sorry, I see it's bouncing around a little bit. I didn't take that into consideration when I was setting this up. So hopefully that won't be an issue through the video. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and take that screw out. Set that off to the side. Of course, you don't want to lose that. And like I said, so we're just going to insert that into the hole. Push that right out. Again, set these off to the side. You definitely don't want to lose these. We can do the same thing on the bottom. And again, we're just going to insert that, push that pin right out, grab it, pull it out, set it off to the side. Okay. And so when you pull the shock out, you'll see, hopefully, let me get that to focus a little bit better. You can see where it's got some notches in the plastic, and that just makes it easier to pull the shock out. And of course, when you're putting it back in, same thing. All right, and of course, and the whole shock just pulls loose. All right, so let me set this back up, and we're going to proceed to pull the shock apart. All right, guys, and I'm going to have a little old microfiber cloth here, and that way no parts roll away or anything, and it just makes it easier. All right, so here's the shock, and so what we're looking at right here is on this cap. Let me see if I can get a close-up of that. You'll see the screw right there again. It's the same 2mm. So you're just going to insert that, and we're just going to undo that screw. And I guess I can just do that right here. All right. And once that's undone, set that screw off to the side. And you're just going to push down on this, the spring retainer. Maybe. There we go. And you'll see it's got that gap right there. Hopefully you guys can see that. And so we're going to remove that. Set that to the side. Now, of course, the spring's just going to let go. All right, so here's the shock, and now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this cap off. I did forget to mention, have something to empty the old shock oil into. So let me grab a little bottle and then we'll continue on. All right, so now that I've grabbed a bottle to empty the fluid into, just set that to the side. And these are usually, they're not super tight, so you should just be able to grip the shock. And then we're just going to twist the cap. All right, and that's just going to unscrew. All right, and it looks like the bladder here stayed in the top, so we'll get that out in a moment. Normally it stays on top of the shock, but it doesn't matter because we're replacing that anyway. So we're just going to pour the oil out. You can see, I don't know, you probably can't see, but it was not really dirty, but it definitely, you know, it's probably due to be changed. It's a good idea to change them once in a while. I had actually not bought this XMAXX new, and I noticed one of the shocks had a small leak to it, so I figured, well, I'll go ahead and just rebuild all of them. Sorry about that, it's a donkey. Yeah. Live out in the country, obviously, and he's just not going to shut up. All right, so we're just going to pump this a little bit and make sure we're getting all the oil out. You can leave it upside down to drain, but since we're disassembling it, you know, it's easier just to wipe it down if you really want to make sure there's no trace of the old fluid. All right, so I think that's good enough. And of course, you do want to kind of move that shaft in and just make sure it's smooth, right? So if there's any sticky spots, you know, or if it gets really hard, that may indicate your shock shaft is bent. Obviously, at that point, you would want to replace it. But this one is pretty smooth, so we're just going to proceed on with the shock rebuild. On this, it's my understanding, I think it's a 22 millimeter. I just use an adjustable wrench, and it's not on there very tight. You may be able to do it with your hand, but we're just gonna put that on there. You want to be careful that you don't scrape up the aluminum, so we're just going right there. As soon as I get that on there, and let's see, of course. That one's actually on there pretty good. Of course it would be, all right? Always works that way when you're trying to do the video and demonstrate it. Really? All right, there we go. So now we're just gonna undo this. All right, and you can see, of course, that that's just an empty cylinder now. All right, so let's see the contents of the Traxxas shock rebuild kit. It does come with instructions, or at least kind of a semi-instructions with a exploded view. But again, you know, once you do this once, you'll never need that, because it is really just that easy. It's not complex at all. And sorry, I'll show you guys that, but I'll put that up at the beginning of the video too. So that's the part number for the shock rebuild. And it does have enough to do 2 shocks. And it runs, right now, the manufacturer's price on that is $8 from Traxxas. You might pay a little bit more on eBay, or you know, if you buy it off of Amazon. Of course, there's shipping if you order it directly from Traxxas. I would highly recommend, if you have a local hobby shop, try buying it through them. You know, give them a little bit of business. I'm sure, you know, they'd appreciate that. But, you know, if you're pretty far out, you know, there's nothing wrong with ordering it. All right, just be aware it covers 2 shocks, so if you're going to rebuild all 4, you'll need 2 packages. All right, so here's what it comes with. It comes with a new cartridge right here. I'll set that right there. comes with this bushing right here. It's going to come with a new bladder. It's going to come with the new seal. It's going to have this clip retainer. It's going to come with a new nylon inserted nut. It's going to come with this new washer. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. And it's going to come with, this is from the other shock rebuild. It is going to come with 2 different shock pistons. And for the XMAXX, it tells you use the black. For the XRT, you're going to use the blue one. It looks like the XRT has slightly smaller holes, so a little bit stiffer damping than the XMAXX. All right, so at this point, we're going to use this little multi-tool here, and you're going to use the 7mm. You're just going to go on this nut here on the end, and we're just going to remove it. You can normally just hold on to this. It shouldn't be super tight on there. All right, so now we have that removed. Now we're going to take this off as well. You'll notice that is where that little washer goes. Once that's done, we're just going to slide this right off. So this is what we have. This is what we removed. This you're just going to throw away. All right, so make sure you know this is clean. I'm just going to give this a quick wipe down. So now we're going to go ahead and proceed to put this back together. You're going to take this cartridge right here. I'm just going to insert that through. You're going to take this this seal right here. Be careful not to nick that or anything. And we're just going to press that all the way down. Now we're going to insert this bushing. You'll notice one side has a taper. That's the side that's going down. And it's going to, so you're going to push it all the way down till it's inside. You'll notice it has those little, see if I can get a little better shot of that, hopefully. All right, so you'll see there's some grooves right there. And that's with this clip. We're just going to insert that in. Just push that all the way in. There we go. I don't think it has to click or anything. All right. And that basically holds that little spacer there that pushes down on the seal. We are almost done with this. So now we're going to take the black shock piston. You'll notice on one side, I'm going to try and get in close on this. Let's see. Hopefully I'm getting that. So on one side, you'll notice it's just got like a little indent. The other side is perfectly flat. This side actually has like a little indent. And so that's where you're going to put, that side's going to face down towards that washer. So we're going to take this. Washer goes on the shaft like that. Doesn't matter which way the washer goes. And then again, the side with the slight indent is going to face that washer. We're going to put it on like that. You're going to take the nut that they give you with the nylon insert. We're going to tighten this on there. You don't want to do it like really tight. I normally do it to where the piston just doesn't rotate. All right, so you can see just there it's snug. Then go just a little bit because you don't want that to distort, right? And it's got the nylon insert, so it's not going to come off. So now we just got to get the old cap out, which Doesn't look to be in horrible shape. It actually looks pretty good, but you know, like I said, since I didn't buy this new, one of them was leaking. Figured, well, comes with enough to rebuild it, so we're just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so once this is all together, we're just gonna, you can clean that out. This one's actually pretty clean on the inside, so no dirt or anything. It's always a good idea to wipe it down. Now we're just gonna insert this back in, and we're gonna screw this piece back in. Make sure, of course, with that O-ring right there, as it gets close, you want to kind of take your time, make sure that it doesn't nick it or anything, and that it's going in nice and smooth. All right, make sure, and just continue on once it's in. Again, when you go to tighten this, you don't have to do it like really, really tight. I would say once it's snug by hand, then you know, just give it another little turn just to get it nice and snug in there. All right, we are almost done. We're going to take your shock oil. Now we're just going to put some in the shock, into the shock body. Okay, you're not going to go to the very top. You're going to go probably, you can see how wide that is and how far down that extends. So about that far away from the top. You know, I would say probably maybe close to an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to push the shaft up very slowly because you don't want all the oil coming out. Then you're going to pull it down. You'll see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's some air bubbles that come up. And we're just going to do that a couple of times to make sure we get most of the air released from here. And we'll pump that 3 or 4 times. I don't know if you guys can see all the air bubbles that are coming up. And then we're just going to, hopefully you guys can see how close that is to the top. And we're just going to put a little bit more. We're going to put this new bladder. The bubbled side goes into the shock. And you're going to screw the cap on. Be careful. Take your time doing this because you don't want to pinch that bladder. And you don't want to cross thread it. You can see there's some oil coming out, and that's fine. So now we're going to tighten that. I'm going to wipe off the excess oil. I'll get a close-up of that. All right, so where that oil was coming out from is, it's called a weep hole. And let me see if I can get in close enough. Hopefully you guys can see that little hole right there. That's basically what it's designed for, is any excess oil, it'll actually bleed out of that hole. Once it's together, make sure everything's nice and smooth, that there's no issues. Again, you know, make sure that's tight, but not excessive, just hand tight is good. We're just going to put the shock together, and then we're going to reinstall everything, and that's it. That is how you rebuild a Traxxas XMAXX or XRT shock. One thing I do want to point out, that weep hole, I always face it facing backwards. So any dirt that's being kicked up in the front shocks, you don't want that hole getting plugged, so I always face it to the back. And the same thing for the back shocks, face it, you know, towards the rear part of the vehicle, and that way any dirt that gets kicked up doesn't plug that hole up. All right, I hope this has helped you guys out. You know, if you were hesitant about rebuilding the shocks, you can see it's a really easy job. And yeah, you know, consider subscribing to the channel, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, or, you know, put them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them. You know, and if you guys have any tips, please leave them in the comments as well. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.